We're on.
Yes, sir, you're on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to take off my mask since I'm 6 feet away from everybody in the room. We're coming in a little early today on the press conference because we got a busy schedule, so this was the best time to fit it in. As we always do on the Wednesday after a Tuesday council meeting, we offer follow-up to the media and to citizens to have any questions about what was discussed or happened last night at the council meeting. Before I go into that, I want to remind folks that the Sheriff's Department and the Community Benefit Committee in the City of Columbus started a turkey drive yesterday, November the 2nd. It goes through the 19th. And we're asking for citizens to either donate frozen turkeys or they can make a financial contribution and we can purchase them. They'll be distributed on the 20th, starting at 8 a.m. at the Columbus Soccer Complex. And it's to all Lowndes County residents are capable of getting a turkey. They just have to have an ID. I believe we were trying to collect about 1,000 turkeys. And so the drop-off can start now, and you can drop them off at the Lowndes County Sheriff's Department. You can call them at 662-327-6788 if you have any questions. So wonderful calls. This is the time of year that we should always be thinking about others, but during the holidays there are a lot of people out there that are having a difficult time, and anything we can do to help with that is a good thing. Also, as part of this, we're going to have what we hope to be an annual event. It's a turkey pardon, playing off of the turkey being pardoned in Washington every year. Our slant on it will be in front of City Hall, and since it's part of the turkey drive, the sheriff and I will pardon one lucky turkey from the Lowndes County, Columbus area that will not land on anyone's plate. After we do that, the event is going to be here in front of City Hall. It'll be 3:30 on the Thursday, the 18th, before the drop-off day of the 20th for the frozen turkeys. It's going to be a family-friendly event. We're going to have fall festivals going on. We're going to block the street off in front of City Hall. Friends from Caledonia are going to have their exotic zoo here. There's going to be a community table and a lot more. So we hope people will mark their calendars for that. The sheriff and I are excited about pardoning the turkey before Thanksgiving. With that, I'll move into some of the things that went on at the council meeting last night. Supervisor Brooks presented the findings of the Crime Prevention Task Force report. As many of y'all know, this process started in January under the direction of Mayor Smith, and Supervisor Brooks was elected to chair the committee, and he worked with other members of the committee. Chief Shelton, the police chief, was the law enforcement enhancement committee. Dr. Labat, our school superintendent, was over the education area. The community revitalization was under attorney Nicole Clinkscales, and the recreation and youth department was under our director of Columbus Parks and Rec, Greg Lewis. So those individuals, with the help of a lot of volunteers in the community, collected data, did a lot of interviews, and have come back with some recommendations for the city to consider. And Supervisor Brooks will be releasing this information to the media today. We are still, along with the council, we're studying the report. I commend them on the hard work that they did. We hope to keep the committee together and continue to work on this process, because it's very important that our citizens work together in trying to build a community where crime prevention is a top priority. And as we're seeing crime go up around the country, Columbus is not unique to that. But what we would like to do is do everything possible have a safer community for everyone. Another topic of interest that happened at the council meeting last night, Councilman Mickens, Beard, and Jones traveled to Vicksburg week before last. They went with Kevin Stafford, our city engineer, to look at a new park that Vicksburg put in 2019 that Neil Schaefer helped design and build. And Joe Dillon, our public information officer, went along with them and gave us a review, a video, which I think, Joe, is that video? Can people see that?
We're compiling it today with Kevin's report, and it'll be posted today.
Okay, on the Facebook page? Okay, and the website too, or just
Yes,
Facebook?
sir.
Okay. It'll be on our Facebook page and the website later today with the information from the video that Joe put together, and then also the information that Kevin presented last night. The council did vote last night to go ahead and engage Neil Schaefer in reviewing the last study on Probst Park, which was about 20 years ago when the city and county were still together in the park system, and now we're separate. And so they're going to take that and then do another study to kind of update on what might be in the best interest of the citizens for the park today. The feasibility study will cost up to no more than $15,000. The council voted to go ahead and move forward with that. When Neil Schaefer begins this process, there will be community input. We talked to him last night about having town hall meetings to discuss it. So it's very important that we get citizen input on what we decide to do going forward with the park. Councilman Beard and I will also be meeting with Tripp and Leroy from the Board of Supervisors, Tripp Carson and Leroy Brooks, to begin conversations on what kind of partnership the city and county could potentially have in this process. There's no guarantees there, but there is interest from the Board of Supervisors to hear what we have in mind or what we might be thinking about. And I think that's a very positive step for the city and county residents. So more to come on that. We did go into executive session last night to discuss 2 promotions within Public Works. Is that right, Jeff?
Yes.
The council did vote to approve those. We also discussed the proposed organizational structure and salary structure that I have proposed for our focusing right now primarily on our finance and administration department. I was able to give the council 2 proposed job org charts. The top one is the new proposal that I'm suggesting. This one is the current org chart. We don't actually have a formal org chart for the city. We're working on that too, but this was a focus on this area. The council had voted earlier to go ahead and move forward under the current job description. So the council has the new job descriptions that I'm proposing and also the current job descriptions. There is some salary increase in my proposal, also some job duties that would be different. I'm proposing a chief administration officer and moving what was the CFO position to a finance director and city clerk position, which would answer directly to the CAO, the chief administration officer, instead of to me. Currently, the CFO answers directly to the mayor. The council voted last night to go ahead and continue the advertising process in the way that we are, but they did have discussion about wanting to learn more about my new proposal. They have been reviewing it. They have some questions. Some of the council have some questions about how we would, adjust the salaries. And so we had discussions about that last night, but because of the urgency of needing these positions filled, we're going to go ahead and move forward with the current job descriptions, which would be a chief operational officer and a chief financial officer. So that's where we are on that. We will probably try to discuss this. We were going to discuss this at the last, we had a work session scheduled for last Friday, which I think would have been helpful before the meeting last night, but because of illnesses, we had to cancel that. So we're hoping to have one in the not too distant future so we can go ahead and continue to discuss. Regardless of what the council decides to do as far as the job descriptions and the positions and how much we pay, I am anxious to get those positions filled and move forward in a positive manner. We have some serious issues in our finances in the city, which is not a secret, and we need to get some good qualified people in these positions to help us be able to move forward in the way that we need to. So regardless of whether it's under the job descriptions and org chart that I'm proposing or not, we're going to do everything we can to get the best people in the positions to help move Columbus forward. The council has valid questions about these issues. Change is never easy, and I think we just all need to be patient and work together and make sure that everybody is in understanding of where we are and where we need to go. So I don't see that as a negative decision at all. I am glad that the council is engaged in these positions, and we will release the org charts to the media if they would like them. We can also send you copies of the job descriptions and the salary range, which would point out what the different job responsibilities would be. It's important to note, as we discussed last night, that even if we're advertising in the old job descriptions, there's always extra duties that are assigned in the job description, so that if the council decides that they want to move more towards where I'm suggesting, then that can be done even with advertising the way we're going forward. But we're hoping to get really good applicants. I would like to see some folks applying that have had experience in these roles, maybe in other cities. I think it's important to try to find some folks with experience in those particular areas. That was one of the reasons I really wanted to try to increase the salaries. My suggestions were in line with what other cities are doing and what the Stennis Center report from Mississippi State put out. Bottom line is, for a lot of these positions, there's a lot of responsibility. I think that we need if it's a CAO or COO, that person needs to be working directly with the finance department, making sure that all the policies and procedures are happening in a timely fashion, that we're getting accurate reports to the council on a regular time frame. Some questions were, how can we raise salaries here when we're still not able to raise them across the board? Well, one of the reasons that we weren't able to raise them across the board was because of an error in our accounting. Those are the kinds of things that you want to avoid. We are paying some late fees on things not being handled in a timely fashion. There's a good chance that we could have some sightings again in our reports from our audits. And those are the kinds of things that you don't need to continue to have on a regular basis. That affects everything that we do as a city, from running the city in an efficient manner, making sure all the departments are, we have competitive salaries, making sure that we have proper equipment, the best equipment for the police department, the fire department, which we do not have right now. And in my opinion, that goes back to the situation that we're in with our finances. And so we'll have more information on that as we go through. But again, I feel like that we're in a very positive place with the council. We don't always see eye to eye on everything completely, but that's a good thing. You don't want groupthink. And I think that but I think we're moving in a good direction. And regardless of how we fill these positions and what their responsibilities are, as mayor, I will do everything I can to help them be successful for the citizens of Columbus. And then we also are advertising for a new IT director. That was another issue that we talked about. And there's potentially some restructuring that could be going on in that area. And there will be a salary increase for the director. Those are very competitive positions out there, and not easy to fill. So, but we will be advertising for that position immediately too. Jeff, was there anything else that we discussed? Oh yes, and we did, which was very good news, is that we did vote to increase the salary of our HR director, who has been with us for over 30 years. Pat is an institution here. I can't imagine how we're functioning without her. And right now, with having interim positions in our CFO and COO, she's been taking on extra responsibilities to help in that area. So when I did make a request to increase the salary level in that position, and the council decided to go ahead and do that one last night. So that's good news.
Strategy session regarding the bridge case.
Oh yes, thank you, Jeff. So glad Jeff's here. You come up and talk about that if you don't mind. We discussed about what's going on with the bridge, and I know there's a lot of interest in the community on that. So Jeff's been working on this project for the city because we're in litigation, and I'll let him speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor. The case is pending in District Court, Northern District of Mississippi. It was originally filed down in Mobile by the company that hit our bridge, Cooper Marine, and we got it removed up here where the bridge is located. The city hired Frank Thaxton with a firm in Greenville. He does a lot of maritime work. And so he had made various requests of me to present to the mayor and council last night, which we did in a strategy session. They gave me general approval on various things that need to be done in the case. But because of its ongoing litigation, we won't talk about the details of those things.
Wait, I got a bridge question that was sent in.
Okay.
Did we mention the part about Neil Schaefer? Do you need to do that? No.
Not really.
The question is submitted about the bridge. When do you think repairs would begin?
They'll begin when we extract the money from the defendant companies that we're suing.
Do we have?
And we're not going to. The city doesn't have the money to spend multiple $1 million to fix the bridge, and that's what it's going to cost. It's a lot of money.
So
the bridge was severely damaged below the water line, knocked loose from its support structures, and there's nothing under that pier that's been hit other than some rebar holding it up. So it's a precarious deal. We're working as hard as we can. There's an upcoming conference with the magistrate judge, David A. Sanders, in Aberdeen, probably within the next few weeks. They'll take a run at, compromise discussions, but it's early in the litigation, and normally that stuff doesn't get compromised early. They want to do discovery about stuff, so I don't expect it to be real soon.
So you do know what repairs need to be made then, correct?
We know what damage was done, but how to fix it has not yet been determined, and that was part of the strategy discussion last night.
And because it's a historic bridge.
Yeah, and another issue that makes it more expensive is that we can't just fix it in the cheapest way possible. It looks ugly because it's a national landmark, and it's comes under the purview of the Department of Archives and History, who has to approve any repair. And having dealt with them before, I can say that they're rather enthusiastic about how they like things done, and they don't want it to look cheap, and they want it to look original when it's finished. So that's what we have told Cooper Marine. We actually sent an application down to the state Archives and History, and they sent back saying, you know, the Cooper Marine's proposed fix, which had a bunch of attachments to it, wasn't gonna be approved.
Okay. And so the public will know, you've been on this since day one. You were actually on the river the day it happened. And so even though the public doesn't see activity to fix it, there's a lot going on. Can you talk about that?
There is, it's federal, thankfully, we're in federal court where the judges implement scheduling orders, and they're loath to enlarge the deadlines that they set in place. Now, COVID had an effect on federal court too, but it is a lot more rigorous in how they move cases along. So even though this is off to a slow start, now that we're having conferences with the magistrate judge, I expect it to move on much faster.
And last question, is it more complicated because it happened on the water?
Well, that turns it into a maritime issue, and I don't know a lot about maritime law, but what I know is it would be smart to get a lawyer that knows about it. So I recommended Mr. Thaxton from Greenville. He's done this for 30, 40 years. And it's a lot of complicated stuff, and I won't get into it, but it's more complicated than your regular who ran the red light case.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You got anything?
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, the question that was submitted, and then I think Ronnie wants to ask you about speeding,
Sure.
but one of the questions that were submitted was, when you talk about the park, will the park become more than just a baseball field when it's redone? I mean, will there be more activities other than just baseball for?
Well, that's what the feasibility study will help us to determine. I think that there is a desire for that from some of the comments that we've already received from the community. I think there was an excellent editorial a few weeks ago in the Commercial Dispatch about repurposing parks in other areas to kind of fit what's going on in today's society. People have talked about, being mindful of what other things that the county could be building as far as parks and what's close by in Starkville and other areas. We want to make sure that, we're not duplicating something that might not be used. So that's why it's going to be important to get a lot of feedback from the community. And, Neil Schaefer's firm has experience in doing these types of feasibility studies. So we're very confident that we will get good information back. I'm excited too in the fact that, we're in discussions, preliminary, nothing definite with the county, but that could be a game changer out there. One of the things that I would like to see us consider is, and this could be something we might do in a public-private financial support, is having a competitive swimming area out there in a natatorium. There's not very many in the state. Columbus is known for its successful swim teams. At one time, there was a pool out at Probst Park that was used for swim competition. I'm talking about an enclosed natatorium, which could, I think, be a game changer in getting competitions here, but also swimming is such a great exercise for all ages, and to have something like that in Probst Park, I personally think would be a wonderful thing to consider. Of course, that's would be something that would be part of possibly the feasibility feasibility study, and then conversations with people in the community. So yes, I think it could be potentially used for a wide range of things, as was mentioned last night, that they've done in, I think the park they looked at in Vicksburg has added like a putt-putt golf and some other things that, seem to be popular in communities.
You got a question about?
Mayor, I know you talk a lot about, we talk a lot about Probst Park. What about Sims Scott Park and some of these other community parks that are in the community? What about some of those
yes,
parks?
Last night the council, was clear that this particular discussion is about Probst Park only right now. However, that does not mean that we're not, concerned about the neighborhood parks. There's some interest in, especially like in some of the parks, bringing back T-ball. And there's some groups in town that are talking about helping organizing events for after-school programs and more programs for senior citizens in the neighborhood parks. So that will continue to be a area of high interest to the city. Those are parks that we can also, as I mentioned before, look for grant money to help improve and sustain those parks. But this particular project that we're talking about right now would be strictly Brooks Park.
I've got 2 questions from the Commercial Dispatch. Are you going to ask about speeding first?
Yes. On my way in this morning, a gentleman stopped me and asked about speeding down Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
What are your comments on that?
Yeah. We've been getting a lot of complaints, and I've actually witnessed some of the speeding that's been going on in Main Street and in other areas of the community. It seems to be at a particular high level right now in a lot of areas in Columbus for some reason. I've been in conversations with the police chief about things that we could potentially do to try to curtail some of the speeding. I would ask citizens to please be very careful. The thing that makes me nervous sometimes is when I see some of these cars going by fast, they're not even looking up, they're looking at their phones. And being able to control that is not easy, but it's something that we're looking into. I'm on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, I'm having citizens come in and visit with me about getting speed bumps in their neighborhoods because of the speeding. I also talked yesterday to a city bus driver. She's been doing her job for 13 years. She's very passionate about it. And she was talking to me about locations within the city where drivers were not stopping with the bus stop signs, that they're driving by. She's very nervous about children being hit. Everybody seems to be in a hurry today, and so it's a big concern. I've made the police chief aware of the situation she described to me. He's made it a priority because he was very concerned to hear it too. And we're just aware of what's going on in the area that she's driving in. I'm concerned it could be happening in other places in the city too. So we're looking into it. The gentleman who stopped you, I think when you came in, has stopped me too before about the speeding on Main Street. It is a problem.
All right, Mayor, got 2 final questions for you from the Commercial Dispatch. First, how does it affect the application interviewing process for COO and CFO if the salaries and descriptions of the jobs are subject to change?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as we discussed last night in the meeting, that having a lower salary which we will, than what I proposed, could potentially affect the number and the quality of applicants that you get. And that's a concern, but it doesn't mean that we won't have somebody that would apply that would be very qualified for the job. It also doesn't mean that while we're in the process, that the council might decide to, increase the salary. So it's not ideal, but it's not, it's not something that's going to keep me up at night worrying about. We're going to be just diligent about finding good qualified people.
All right, now the last question is, and after last night, to be clear, how does the council seem to considering your org chart, your new one?
Oh, I think they're very open to discussing it. As I mentioned earlier, when you're proposing changes, it's not always easy. The feedback that I took from the executive session with the council was that they're not necessarily against it, but they want to look at it closer. They've had it for a little while now, but they mentioned that it would be good to discuss it further in a work session where we could really talk about it. What I'm proposing to do in the work session is to go into more detail with them about where the money would come from for the salary increases and how, and then also give them more detailed information about some of the issues that we're facing in our finances right now, and explanations of why we got there and why I feel strongly that the reorganization is necessary to get us out of it and prevent it from going on in the future.
That's all I got, sir.
Okay. Anybody else?
Anything, Ronnie?
Thanks, everybody. Come by City Hall and see me if you have any other questions. I'm always willing to sit down and talk to folks. Thank